Call today's committee of the whole meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Get started. Do we have any members of the public who wishes to speak today? Nobody from the public? Are you on the schedule though?
You haven't.
Yes. Appreciate you. Oh, he is. Okay, so seeing there's nobody from the public to speak today, we'll move on. I'm going to adjust the agenda just a little bit because we have two visitors. We want to make sure that we get them so they can go about their way and they don't have to stick through the entire meeting. So we're going to get started first with the wellness grant. And then we'll get started. Then after that, we'll jump to the Harding renaming proposal, and then we'll come right back up to the PSSA results. So wellness grant, Ms. Deanna.
Can we just talk from here?
You can. We got. Usually we reserve one of the seats up here where.
Perfect. Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Deanna Philpott. I am the school wellness consultant, basically the liaison between the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the CDC grant and your district. And I'm here just to kick us off, kick Randy off in talking about his presentation. So if you remember from Caitlin's presentation in the spring, there are 5 main goals of the grant over the next, so we're inching near the middle of year 2. Okay. The middle of year 2, it's a 5-year grant. And so over the course of 5 years, our 5 main goals were to examine your food service department, your nutrition services, all nutrition throughout the school district, to look at how your nursing department manages chronic health conditions, to look at any out of school time programs that you all run in terms of physical activity and nutrition. So the 4th one is to really take a look at your school wellness policy, make sure that it is, matching a model wellness policy and that it's being implemented with fidelity, and that all your schools are in compliance with it. And then the 5th one was to really focus on your health and physical education department, really focusing on the idea of physical education and physical activity throughout the school day. And ideally, over the course of 5 years, implementing what's called a CSPAP, which is a comprehensive school physical activity program. So to do that, we start off by evaluating your physical education department and curriculum. The first 4 of those goals are something that I am really managing through my work with Caitlin. But for that 5th goal, we've consulted with and contracted with Slippery Rock University, who has really become an expert in the state in terms, and nationally, really, I guess, in terms of the best recommended physical education curriculum and how to run physical education departments in an ideal way. And so over the past year, Slippery Rock has been working with your health and PE department to evaluate and assess how the department is running, how your curriculum looks, and just matching it up with best practices and whatnot. And so Randy is here to provide the results of the work that they've done for the past year and to talk about what's coming next.
Okay, so I'm Randy. Hannah is my colleague. There are 2 strategies here that are happening. One is statewide and one is local, new case study in Erie. Hannah is kind of overseeing statewide initiatives and I'm overseeing working with your staff. What's great about this idea is the CDC thinks that schools are a place we could impact public health. And they specifically think health and phys ed teachers could have a role in doing that if directed in that direction.
Takes a second.
Yeah, I see that, yeah. Let me go back there. Okay. I'm learning quicker. All right. So why were we selected? And we're a little bit unique, well, we're a lot unique compared to most, what you would think of gym class and probably classes you went through were a lot of games and sports and aimless learning. We have a model that prepares people to do something completely different. That model is directed around these three things, and they line up directly with the whole, the CDC's mission and vision in terms of, what could happen in schools and what could help PE teachers doing. The first one being having whole school initiatives. We think health and phys ed teachers should be leading and or at least being a part of that process of getting a school to have a culture of health, wellness, and physical activity. Second one is more of the curriculum. We believe health and phys ed teachers should be teaching. We prepare our teachers and we work with schools here to teach people the things they need to be healthy and happy in life. Less games and sports and more of the things that we all struggle with as we're adults. Our mental health, our sleep patterns, our nutrition patterns, all the things that we all deal with on a daily basis are the things that maybe we should be teaching people. So the stars represent being life, career, and college ready. What does a person need to be physically, mentally, life, college, and career ready? And the last one is, sure, we can teach them all these things, but how do we get them to actually do it? And that's some self-empowerment. Well, that's what we've been working with some of your faculty with in terms of, it's great to teach them these things, but how do we get them to actually do these things? How do we get them to actually think about how much water they're drinking in a day, or how to control their emotions, or how to make sure they're getting 60 minutes of physical activity per day, or how they're socially interacting with other people in a positive manner? Knowing how to do it's one thing, doing it's a whole nother thing. The rest of these slides here for a little bit are just what we presented to the CDC when they were here a couple of weeks ago. This is all strategy one. This is statewide. So I'm going to skip through this quite quickly because it's really not relevant to you. But I do want you to see that this same thing is happening statewide, but we're really focusing on you along the way. So these are some of the trainings that are happening statewide in terms of this year. Now, something that's important to know about this idea is this grant came to your teachers, and probably most of you in the room are aware of that. Your health and phys ed teachers got a large grant in the mid 2016, 17, somewhere in that area, a PEP grant. That grant came from them. They wrote that grant, received the money, did a lot of really neat things with it. This grant came to them. And knowing that, and having worked with a lot of public school teachers in my career over 30 years, when teachers are asked to do something extra that they didn't sign up for initially, just have to walk a fine line. Just have to consider, what are we trying to ask you to do here that is extra and beyond. So we've went into it with a little different pattern than statewide. The statewide, we've been doing training that is whole school initiatives. And with your teachers, we've been working with them about their curriculum and trying to get them to create some goals. What are some things they want to do to improve themselves and to help them get to that point? So our target is your health and phys ed teachers. Important fact there. We have conducted now 8 professional development sessions for a total of 40 hours total, 40 hours. We've had an average of 22 teachers. And let me tell you, teachers are great. They show up, they're passionate, they're interested. Do they disagree? Sure. Do they disagree with me sometimes? Yes. But we want that. We expect that. But and let me also tell you, your curriculum is really, really good. It's a really good curriculum. And I worked with most all the districts in Western Pennsylvania I've worked with at some point in my career. Yours is good. There are 2 really good curriculums out there in Western Pennsylvania before I got to review Erie's. North Allegheny and Deer Lakes. And Erie is as good. It could use a little updating, but we're not going to get to that point until maybe a little bit later in 5 years. But anyway, really, really strong. So in year one, last year, what we did was had them do a little SWOT analysis, so they had some ownership. We wanted them to feel like they're a part of this. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your threats? And let's help you in some of those areas that are you see as weaknesses and or threats. The strengths we want to build on, the opportunities we want to take advantage of, and we'll see us as helping you do that. We let them set some goals that we're trying to accomplish this year. Building some advocacy. They want to build some advocacy with you. They want to build some advocacy with the administrators. They want to build some advocacy with parents, and they want to build some advocacy with the students so that the community knows what it is that they're trying to do. We're working on that now. We're looking at how to build some self-empowerment within the students. We had a couple of guest speakers. We did a curriculum assessment where we used a CDC tool to assess their curriculum, and we have some results from that in a moment. Here's the SWOT analysis. I don't need to read it to you. You can read it, but there's their strengths, what they felt were their strengths. After working with them these hours, I would agree with all of that. They are those things. You can see their weaknesses, and we're working on trying to turn those into strengths. The opportunity to collaborate is just happening because we're getting to meet all of the professional development days. They're getting an opportunity to meet with us and or whoever we bring in to help with them. New teacher collaboration and mentoring we've set up internally, so they have some internal support within the discipline. They have outside the discipline a mentorship program in the district, but inside the discipline, just some people that they can rely on to help. One of the things we became aware of that was a weakness is when new teachers are hired, the curriculum is pretty intense. It's pretty deep, and how to apply it. Some of the new hires were struggling with that. And just how to find the curriculum was something that they were struggling with a little bit. So we've set up a system where it's easy access and how to implement the curriculum. 5 and number 6, then I'm just giving you that to read if you're wondering why I'm hesitating. Yeah, question, sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of acronyms in these slides, which I am not familiar with.
Okay.
So LEA, SWOT,
Local education.
okay,
That's you. Erie is the LEA in this
Okay.
case. SWOT analysis is for them to look at their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities, and their threats. So the
Okay.
first two there are the S and the W's, and this all comes from this is what they perceive as being their strengths and what they perceive as being their weaknesses. And then number 6 there, you can see no opportunity for sustainability of the program, and we hope to build that by the end of year 5. We hope to have in place for them something that takes care of a lot of those weaknesses that are above that.
Thank you.
That's just one main.
Right.
Exists and it's working and well, in the contract in Erie, there is no department chairs. So there's the lack of opportunity to collaborate together, you can see as number 1, and then as number 6, being the opportunity to sustain this. Like I'm there and helping them now with these things. When I'm not there, who's going to help guide them there? And the contract is the contract. Good or bad, I don't know. I just know that they see that as a weakness, that sustaining what they have is a great curriculum, but as new people come in and being able to get them on board and not having an opportunity to collaborate is all something they see as a weakness. Did I answer your question?
Well, I'm not gonna nitpick,
Yeah.
but it just seems like no opportunity sounds like all hope is lost.
Yeah, true.
It's wonderful,
Yeah.
but it can't go on a certain.
Yeah. This is here as an opportunity. It's an obstacle, but it's an opportunity. Right?
One of the examples I think would be good for number 6 too, is that idea, if you look back at number 5, is that one of the things we found, at least from what they told us, was that it was extremely rare for them to get PD opportunities that were related to health and physical education, to their own actual discipline. Some of them mentioned that they were being pulled into a lot of PD days on ELA and math. So over the next 3.5 years, we are providing that for them. Every single PD day that your district has that you do not need them for something else, Slippery Rock is going to come do that day for them. But again, once the grant is over, how do we make sure that they continue to receive discipline specific piece?
I think that became aware to them because they did have a large grant. And they did build some pretty unique, creative things from it. And I think they feel like it's fallen apart a little bit, and that the sustainability of that grant has gone away. And now they see us coming in, and we're just wanting to make sure that when we leave, it is more sustainable.
I do want to add, for both of you and the board, that we do have Megan Holleran, who joined our team, in August, I believe. So she is shadowing health and phys ed, art and music to pick up on these and help sustain them moving forward.
And Megan and I met for an hour on Monday. It was great. Yeah. So this on the opportunities fall directly in line with what this grant's hoping to do. If you read some of those, the SISPAP, Coordinated School Physical Activity Plan, they see that as an opportunity, which was awesome, because that is one of the things we might ask them to do in the future. And if it's not in their contract and that's not a stipend, you know, am I going to get involved in this? But they saw it as an opportunity to grow. They saw some social, emotional and emotional regulation as somewhere that they could grow. Connection to the community, that is a SISPAP, you know, the Coordinated School Physical Activity Plan has a direct connection to the community. And you can read some of those. Then the last one being the threats. This was a sensitive area for them, and this is one of the things they want to be proactive in terms of building an advocacy plan that's from them out. They feel like their discipline, viewed by their peers, administration, community is not being worthy, not being respected. I know you're gonna have a presentation on PSSA scores, and they just feel like the focus is all on that, you know, and there's less focus on them. And we're trying to help them with some things that they can own their own destiny in terms of that, gather their own data and present their own data to you. The last one then is qualified certified staff. And then on that note, I would just like to offer an olive branch here in terms of we prepare some really great teachers, and some of the teachers you have on staff now aren't certified. And that's creating a little friction within the group, because those who are certified feel as though they're a little disrespected in terms of why are we having a non-certified teacher if there are certified people out there. And we do have certified teachers that we could, you know, announce the positions to and try to get you some applicants here. And we do have graduate program for any certified teacher in Erie now that doesn't hold health and phys ed certification. We have a graduate degree that's all online, asynchronous, except for the field experience of student teaching, that they could earn their certification. Health and phys ed is one of the areas you can't just go take the test. You have to go through a program. Some of the other disciplines you can take the test and offer another certification. PCAT is just a physical education curriculum assessment tool. We did that. We had your teachers go through that. Here's a brief summary of it. Your curriculum is very standards based. You have great lesson plans within your curriculum. You have teaching aids. You have fitness assessment tools. It's a flexible and creative. It allows the teacher to have a voice in their lessons, but still have everyone in a scope and sequence that they're working towards the same direction, the same outcomes. And it can be implemented with the existing equipment. So there's no real need of any equipment for this curriculum to happen. And these were their thoughts. Very consistent curriculum. Number 3, you can see that's something that we're working on them with to create the advocacy plan so that we can deliver to you data and information, parents, community. And number 4, I think, was just the new building. I think the new building, there was some inconsistency between the high schools, and that was just top of their head at the time. That doesn't seem to be quite as top of mind right now as it was when we did that. All right, year 2. This year, what we're hoping to do is just heighten everyone's awareness of the curriculum. You have a really strong curriculum. Not all your teachers are aware of that really strong curriculum, and not all your teachers are aware of how to implement it. So we've been spending a lot of time to make sure all of the teachers are aware of that curriculum and how to implement that curriculum. So to give them some teaching strategies, both from your veteran teachers and then from us, on how to do that across the board, K-12. We're introducing some teaching strategies to try to increase self-advocacy within the students and to increase student relevancy. So the students can see and understand the importance of taking care of themselves. And we did complete the health education curriculum. Year 3 next year, what we hope to do then is align then with what's happening statewide and what Deanna and Caitlin are doing here already, and try and combine our efforts and have the health and phys ed teachers have a strong role in creating that whole school concept. So what role can they have within each of their schools in creating a dynamic, healthy school, not just in their classes, but outside their classes, in the community and in their schools. So we're going to spend the entire year 3 developing those, specifically a coordinated school physical activity plan, but we also might try to do some things with nutrition and some socio-emotional and mental health and mental wellness. That'll be year 3. Year 4, we hope to fully implement those plans, collect some data that we can report back to you and CDC, the Department of Health in Pennsylvania. And then we want to investigate in year 4 some ideas for updating the curriculum a little bit. It's a really good curriculum, but it was written in 2016, and the curriculum should be revised every 5 to 7 years. So it could use a little bit of revision on some new concepts that people need to live well. Some of the things that we need, skills and knowledge we all need as humans to live well, could be integrated into the curriculum. We're going to look at that in year 4. And then year 5, based on the data, make some revisions to the whole school plan. It initiates some small curriculum changes, take them through their curriculum process, and then build a post-grant sustainability, because that was one of their issues. Is this, when we leave, what's going to keep us going? And we'll try to help build that for them. Okay, it's 5 years of work, and I've tried to do it in 15 minutes. So.
If I can just summarize real quick, you know, in all the time that Randy and I have been doing Hannah, and all the time that we've been doing this work, for me, it's been 9 to 10 years, and for Randy, it's been longer.
30.
You know, we're used to going into school districts and kicking off this evaluation piece, right? And immediately seeing a disastrous curriculum where we have to spend the whole time that we're working with these districts fixing curriculum. And it really is incredible to have come into your district and see that that is not the case, that the curriculum is so strong and so good, and that we can just move on from there. And it's really also incredible that a lot of the areas of opportunity that we have found seem like they're going to be very easily fixed by Megan's role. And so it's been wonderful looking at your HP curriculum and like figuring out we can skip so many steps because of how great you guys are already, how far ahead you are already. And so a lot of the things we will be able to jump to is this idea of just making sure that these new teachers are trained on the curriculum, making sure that they all know each other, that the department as a whole is functioning well. And then that idea of getting them out to be leaders in health and wellness in their schools. So I know Caitlin already has, you know, all the staff doing step challenges and whatnot, but get ready for more. All kinds of physical activity throughout the school day. We're going to be talking about brain breaks with the teachers, seeing if the teachers can go, the HP teachers can go in and train all staff on brain breaks, or just pushing that idea of health and wellness. One of the things Randy mentioned was nutrition with the health and physical education teachers. One of the things that we're looking at starting this spring is a partnership between the health curriculum and your farm to school program. So how can we get the health teachers taking their classes out into your school gardens and actually doing hands-on curriculum lessons during their nutrition units? So a lot of that idea of connecting different pieces of your department through the health and PE teachers, and they're excited about it, which is also amazing, because like Randy said, sometimes when you come in, you know, when a superintendent just signs off and says, yes, we want to be part of this, and then you go into the teachers and they're like, oh my God, but your teachers are so excited about this work. It's really, you know, kudos to your district and to you all for what we've seen so far.
My opinion comes no place in this. This is your teacher's voice, and I'm just there to be a facilitator and help them. But if someone were to ask me, I would say the biggest issue is the awareness and implementation of your curriculum. You have a really strong curriculum, and your veteran teachers, on the most part, are teaching the curriculum. Some maybe not as much. It's the newer teachers who are just not aware of it and then implementing it. So I think we can really help a lot with that. But you have a great curriculum, and then that would be the sustainable program. But they can do that internally, and with Megan's help, they can figure out a plan to do that in the future.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I have a question. So, I came across someone who was talking about, like a class he had for young boys. And I'm just wondering if the curriculum has anything that like hooks the kids. His program was based on like stage fighting with pool moves. Like they're not obviously using swords and stuff, but the kids were really into it because it was like a video game. So like, is the physical education sort of adapting to what kids are used to doing and what they like to get them off the couch and video games and actually moving in a manner that they are interested in?
Yes, okay, number 2 there is what we've been working on right now. If you look, we're introducing the teachers to those strategies. How do we empower them? How do we get them interested? How do we make it relevant to them?
Right,
How do we get them to want to do?
right,
this?
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I just actually have a question for Natalie. How many is Natalie here?
Yeah, right.
Oh, Natalie, sorry. I turned to Lauren.
Next
Lauren's not
group.
gonna know. How many uncertified HPE teachers do we have?
One.
Okay,
We only have one uncertified
okay,
PE teacher. The other 2 are in programs.
okay.
And working towards certification, and I just did that research recently.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Another question? Anyone else? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, safe travels. Chair here, we'll let our director sit. Okay, next up, again, I'm moving up the Harding renaming proposal. Mr. Lasher and Swiglia, do you want to present in front? And then that would be fine. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Brenneman, Dr. Brenneman, they could.
Or
They
take a seat.
could take
Is there
a
room
seat.
there?
You have a microphone.
We're moving like a month or so or two to a new space, so it'll be much more easier. But go ahead, where's yours?
Dear Superintendent Polito and Erie School Board members, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As Mr. Brenneman mentioned, my name is Brian Lasher. For those of you who I have not met, I taught social studies at Collegiate Academy from 1999 until my semi-retirement in 2022. My 4 daughters attended Collegiate and 2 of those attended Harding. I'm also a retired U.S. Navy commander. To begin, I would like to explain why I am here. Bob Heidel, the founder of the Mercyhurst Research Intelligence Analyst Program, called me in the spring of 2019. He asked me if I had heard of John Boyd. I said, yes, I studied his theories at the Army War College. He then asked if I knew he was from Erie. I replied, no, I did not know. Bob told me that he and some colleagues thought it would be a good idea to rename Harding after John Boyd. He asked if I would be willing to give a presentation to the Rotary Club, and he suggested I invite Mr. Polito to attend. When I finished reading Robert Corm's biography of Boyd to prepare for that lecture, the conclusion I came to was obvious. This is what we would call in the military a no-brainer. As with many of our children in the Erie School District, Boyd faced difficult challenges. His father died when he was 3. To make ends meet, his mother had to sell baked goods and stationery to supplement her income as a telephone solicitor. At the age of 6, Boyd's sister contracted polio, requiring most of the mother's attention. His family became a pariah as people feared catching polio from them. He grew up on Lincoln Avenue, less than 2 blocks from Harding, the school he attended. He failed first grade. His family was so poor he wore tattered clothes to school. One of his teachers asked him in front of other students if he could not wear more presentable clothes. But his mother always encouraged him, and she imparted the importance of values. Entering Strong Vincent in 1939, things began to change. John excelled in math, and he joined the swim team. It was at this time two mentors entered his life. The first was Art Weibel, the SV swim coach. The second was Frank Pettinato, the chief assistant lifeguard at the Peninsula. He became the school's best swimmer. The rest, so to say, is history. John Boyd was not simply a regional or national figure. His legacy is global. While his contributions were in the military field, he was as much a philosopher, teacher, and mentor as he was a military officer. His aerial attack study became the officer flight training manual for Air Force pilots in the 1950s. In the 1960s, his energy maneuverability theory became the basis for the design of the F-15 and the F-16 aircraft. In the 1970s, his destruction and creation theory became a masterwork in the process of analysis and synthesis. In the 1980s, he was invited by the Marines to give his patterns of conflict brief at their amphibious warfare school, and his theories were used in the design of Operation Desert Storm. Finally, his OODA loop theory, observe, orient, decide, attack, is used not only in military strategy, but in business, law enforcement, and management education. His work is cited in over 300 magazines, journals, and books. Throughout his life, John Boyd demonstrated he was a man of character. He stood for civil rights while segregation was still practiced in the United States, and he became a mentor to those who fought against corruption at the highest levels at the Pentagon. Returning to my point, in December 2019, I invited Mr. Polito to the Rotary presentation, who in turn invited me to speak to the school board in June of 2020. They say timing is everything, and at that time you were busier with more important matters, especially COVID. I return to you this evening to ask you to consider renaming Harding Elementary after John Boyd. Like Strong Vincent, Boyd was a colonel. He is a model for our students, demonstrating that not only can they succeed despite adversity, they can actually achieve great things by learning to overcome it. Boyd stands as a reminder to the teachers of the importance of being a mentor and the impact we can have in turning a student's life around. Finally, few people embody the values of integrity and passion more than John Boyd, and it is for these reasons that I ask you to support this request. One of the challenges, of course, is that many in Erie do not know who John Boyd is. You will need the assistance of members of the community to assist you. One of those persons is Mark Squalia. Mark is an Erie businessman, a member of the Jefferson Society, past board president of the Hagen History Center, a board member of the Officer Hazard Perry Shipyard Project, and Erie's resident expert on Boyd. Mark?
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Polito, school board members, thank you for giving me and Brian the time to speak to you regarding John Boyd. I could spend quite a bit of time talking to you about John Boyd. I have a 90-minute presentation that I could give you, but I was told I only have 5 minutes. I can share that presentation with you in the future. As a native Erie son, Erie should provide some level of recognition for Colonel John Boyd. This recognition would be due to his significant and very influential works and accomplishments. Colonel John Boyd was a product of Harding Grade School, Strong Vincent High School, a graduate of the University of Iowa, and then attended Georgia Tech for his graduate degree in engineering. It is not without a doubt that the education and training that Boyd received while attending Harding and Strong Vincent formulated his intellect and his desire to think, his rigor to formulate new concepts, and also created a strong desire to read and comprehend a variety of disciplines. From engineering to aircraft design, to military strategy and tactics, to the method of how the mind works and thinks, all had their genesis during Boyd's time at Harding and Strong Vincent. But Boyd was much more than a soldier, military thinker, aircraft designer, and strategist. He became a philosopher who espoused that the way we think needs to be constantly evolving. His snowmobile speech to the 1992 Strong Vincent graduating class is an excellent example of that changing thought process. While never spending time in a formal elementary or high school classroom, Boyd was truly a teacher. Boyd accomplished many revolutionary works and at the time controversial ideas using unique methods. He was truly an out-of-the-box thinker. On his initiative and in opposition to his superiors' wishes, working at night, Boyd developed the aerial attack study. This study became the de facto fighter pilot's guidebook before the U.S. Air Force formally adopted it. The usage of these codified tactics saved many U.S. pilots' lives. Using unauthorized computer time, he developed the energy maneuverability theory. The energy maneuverability theory married his aerial attack study concepts with aircraft performance metrics. The output of the EMT was another guidebook that highlighted U.S. aircraft performance advantages versus adversaries' aircraft. A Marine four-star general called Boyd the quintessential soldier scholar who was incorruptible. His works, Destruction and Creation, Conceptual Spiral, and Winning and Losing, led directly to the development of the OODA loop. Destruction and Creation deals with breaking things down into the understanding of constituent parts. Conceptual Spiral deals with revisiting and building topics throughout the thought process. And Winning and Losing led directly to the OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, and act. On the eve of the launch of Operation Desert Storm in 1991, Boyd was in Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney's office discussing strategy for the operation. I want to impart on you that Boyd's influence and impact did not stop with his Air Force career or his death in 1997. His works, his study of strategy, and his thinking process go far beyond the military. Boyd was extremely influential while alive, but continues to do the same while dead. The Marine Corps to this day conducts an annual Boyd Symposium. This annual event shares Boyd's works, concepts, and his way of thinking to assist in formulating strategy, not solely in the military world, but in the business world as well. From healthcare to finance to manufacturing, businesses today instruct their leaders in the practices and the process of the OODA loop. Those leaders then take this training to all levels of their organization. Toyota and Chevron are two examples of global companies that espouse the OODA loop and John Boyd's principles. A management consulting company, AGLX, teaches and trains others on the principle of Boyd's OODA loop. They also host a weekly podcast dedicated to John Boyd, informing on the depths of Boyd's influence. Locally, both the Jefferson Education Society and the New Veterans Center of the Mellon Heritage Foundation, located in the Northeast, host Boyd lectures designed to educate and inform of his legacy. The Hagen History Center maintains in its archives the John Boyd collection. Finally, WQLN recently produced on their Chronicles episodes a series on John Boyd. So you can see that Boyd's impact continues to this day. Thank you for your attention and time this evening.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the board, I'm going to talk about process here in a moment. Since we have a new policy and this will be our first exercise of that. But if you have questions for the gentleman about their presentation, if they're willing to take any questions at this time, you may ask. Yeah, Mr. Harkins.
I have a question with some comments. It may have been after his death. At some point years ago, former prior Erie School Board member named Harry Edwards was a member of the Rotary Club, I think. He made presentations to them and then to us at our public meetings. Often try to rouse interest on our part to do this. And at first I wasn't real dazzled by it. I thought it was interesting, but not much more. But Harry was persistent. He asked me to read the book. I got the book and read it. I was very much won over and in favor of it, but I'm going to guess that what happened was it was maybe reaching its peak of interest at the end of the term of some board members, and then change came and it just got lost. And Brian Lasher come and present to us back when he did. That's how I remember it too. COVID jumped up and took all of it. It affected our meeting times, our methods, and it We were suddenly dealing with masks and school, and, remote learning, all that stuff just came in. And we had no idea it was going to, but suddenly it was just gonna ignore it. I'm all for pursuing this to the end. I just want to say it's come up before. And I don't think it ever got good consideration by us officially as a body. I'm completely in favor of pursuing the full class.
Thank you, Mr. Harkins. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we get to test out new board policy 701.1, naming and renaming of school facilities. So what will happen now is I'll submit a memorandum to the board. It'll have a copy of their presentation. It's also going to have a copy of the policy, so you have a reference for it. And on it, it's going to be 3 questions. One question being whether you wish to continue the discussion before deciding. So it's sort of let's keep talking before we decide. And the decision that we would make at that juncture, would not be to name, but to form a naming committee that's outlined in the policy. So the first option will be to continue to have a discussion before deciding on creating a naming committee. The next option would be to agree to form a naming committee. And then the third option would be to decline forming a naming committee. So I'll have that out to you here in the next couple of days with all the information. And then we'll have, after I pull from the board, we'll have an answer for you gentlemen and for everybody else here by the next committee of the whole meeting. And then we can go from there. So along the way, if there's additional notes or additional things you'd like to incorporate in the information that we provide out. And if at any time any member of the board wishes to reach out to them and have any questions between now and then, help make your decision on that, please do so. But again, the decision that we'll be making would be the formation of a naming committee. It would not be it wouldn't actually be the process itself. But we do need 2/3 agreement to begin that committee. So that's 6 votes in order to do that, just so you know. Any questions about the process?
Can you just take it a step further after the naming committee? Then did we need public input?
Yeah, so the committee would actually have a representative from the community, student body, an employee of the district, and a board member representative on the committee. The committee would have, it's outlined in the policy, the committee would have a series of community meetings, receive information hearings, and then that committee would bring its presentation and recommendations to the whole board. And then at that point, we would make a vote.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Harkins.
I still have my copy of the book if any board member is interested in reading it. It's his biography. The title is just simply Boyd. If anybody would be interested in reading, I'd be glad to share it with you.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, next step, Teresa, Ms. Zumagala, we have the PSSA results and Karen, right?
Thank you, Dr. Brennan. So we did finally receive all of our data and files from the department and have organized initial overview of the results for Keystone CASA. We did receive PVAS, but that was last Thursday, I believe. We do have a couple slides on that, but we're still digging a little bit deeper into that. So I'm going to take you through the initial part of this. Karen will jump in. Karen will jump in with going over some of the data, and then I will have some reflections and recommendations at the end.
Much prefer a folding chair. Yeah.
So there are really two parts to the presentation. The PowerPoint, and I also have a packet at your place. I'm going to be referencing the packet more towards the end. A lot of that, the bulk of this is actually the school results, which we have in there for you. So the presentation, we're going to just do a district initiative timeline. We're going to have the district achievement data multi-year for you. We're going to have our initial PVAS data, which is our growth measure. We will talk a little bit about the movement within performance levels by school, initial theories, because we did stall a little bit this year. And then what our next steps are going to be after we started to look at the data and are determining a path forward. In the packets, just as an FYI, you will have cohort data by performance level. So you will be able to see how one cohort of students performs year over year. You will have, as I said, the school data. We did include the subgroup data, IEP and EL. We've talked a lot about that, and we're going to follow up at the end with that as well. And then we have two graphs for you that is going to show you what the impact of chronic absenteeism is on our student performance. So the first slide is timeline, and it's a little bit difficult to see, I apologize, but we went back and started to look at the initiatives. I was meeting with the directors, the initiatives that we've had going since the pandemic. When we started to talk and look at some of our trends, we actually kicked it back a couple of years because we felt that the year 2017, 2018 had some impact as how we move forward. If you remember, we were in our financial crisis. We had consolidated the high schools into the new Erie High. We had New Strong Vincent at East, and we had closed Wayne and Emerson Gridley at that point. In 2018, we regrouped with our strategic plan. And then 1920, right before the pandemic began, we did a major adoption with K-5 ELA and K-5 math. Which is not ideal to do at the same time, but our teachers had been without materials for so many years. They were very eager and enthusiastic to move forward with that. I'm not going to go through the whole rest of the timeline, but you'll see where COVID put us into virtual instruction that March. And we continued with our implementation of our initiatives. As we talked through it and really got it on paper, it's a lot. And we talked today and actually said, what would we take off of this if we had to take something off? And with the urgency and the importance of getting our students what they need to move forward and be successful, we had a very difficult time. So again, we're going to talk at the end a little bit about how we plan to approach this. So with that, Karen, you want to start with Keystone?
Sure. Just a reminder as we start, I just wanted to give everyone the opportunity listening and also new board members, just a little bit of knowledge about the Keystone exams. So the Keystone exams are end of course assessments. They're taken in Algebra 1, Literature, which is 10th grade, and Biology. Each exam consists of 2 modules that are taken over the course of 2 days, where students sit for approximately 80 to 90 minutes. So I just wanted everyone to understand what the test kind of looked like and felt like for our kids. As we start to look at the graph on the slide, you can see that really our trend from last year to this year remained basically the same when we're looking at proficiency. There was a slight uptick in bio, but for the most part, the graph remains pretty consistent. Okay, stick it together. As we look at the next slide, what I'd like everyone to kind of orient yourselves to the graph is algebra at the top one, then biology in the middle, literature at the bottom. And I think what is most obvious to me was the increase in the students that are in below basic from 23 to 24. And we really started to dig in a little bit to think about the causes of that. And in the packet that you have at your seats, I'd like you to flip to page 21. And when we look at page 21 and we're thinking about our students, the graphs on 21 are broken up into the spring Keystone exams. The top one shows our students with disabilities, our middle one, English language learners, and the bottom, students that participate in regular education. And what I'd like you to notice is the graphs remain pretty consistent when you're looking at page 21, except we're starting to see an increase in the amount of below basic in our EL and our special education students where the proficiency was already pretty poor. Digging in a little bit deeper, our students with disabilities is up to about 25% of our district. EL being about 10% of our district. So kind of keeping that in perspective as we're looking at scores, we definitely know that we have to do some deeper diving into the programming and what's happening with the students there. Because the graphs are pretty flatlined as you look down, across. So we just wanted to kind of point that out. As we go to the next slide, it's talking about our PSSA examinations, and our students take the PSSA starting in 3rd grade and it goes to 8th grade. In English language arts, students test for 3 days. Our 3rd graders, those sessions range from 65 to 80 minutes. 4th to 8th grade, 85 to 100 minutes. Math is a little different. It's a 2-day assessment, and the students test for 2 days about 85 to 100 minutes. And then in science, it moves to 4th grade into 8th grade for 2 days. Science for the 4th graders is 45 to 60 minutes, 8th graders 55 to 70 minutes. And to make things confusing enough, this year, that assessment will switch to 5th graders and will no longer be in 4th grade. But as we take a look again at our graph here, we can see again that the data remain pretty consistent from the year prior. As we go to the next graph again, we can see the different performance levels. If you flip in your packet to page 20, you can see the same kind of breakdown as we looked at for the Keystone exams with students with disabilities, English language learners, and our students in regular education. We see that the students are faring very differently in the specialized populations than they are in our regular education, with our regular education students. And again, we can see that in English, our English language learner population is increasing, and we're also having more difficulty in the below basic areas.
Where's this graph in the packet?
This in your
Very front.
But page 20 kind of really breaks that down. On the next slide, we can see our ELA, our English language arts pass results again. In 3rd grade, we can see an increase in proficient and advanced, but we also had an increase in our below basic, where grades 4 remained relatively flat. And in grade 5, we saw that increase in below basic, which is not the direction that we would like to be going. On our next slide, ELA 6 and 8, our 6th grade remained relatively flat. In 7th grade, we saw a slight increase in some proficiency, and 8th grade, again, relatively flat.
So I have a question. So if we follow grade 6, 20 to 21, are those the same students that would be then in grade 7, 21 to 22?
Yes.
Yes. And then 8 the next year? Okay, because it's jumped a lot with those same students in those 3 years. It looks like from 21 to 22, it went up 22 to 23. Page 4 will show you that. Page 4.
Yeah, that will show you kids from grade.
Kind of overwhelming. Yeah, thank you.
It's hard when you're looking at these, because
I
you
see.
kind of have to bounce.
I'll just
from
click on that
graph to
question,
graph.
because I was wondering about the cohort, so for sure, these are the same exact kids, not just those of the same age that would have been in those grades, like these are the exact same kids and the cohorts are.
And
Well,
unless
not
they
necessarily
transfer
the
out.
Exact same, there's gonna be some kids that transfer in and out of the district. But
Okay.
the vast majority should be the same.
To me, I'm concerned with the validity of the data in that case, as far as tracking cohorts, if it's not exact. I know there's kids coming and going, and I know it's still taught to something, but the majority of them are still.
On those by grade, on the math, it just gradually gets worse, as you'd expect. If we're not performing well, it's gonna accelerate. But if you look at the ELA, we have a dramatic improvement. And it's not from 5th to 6th grade. And then proves even, this would be page 2. On the English language arts. Looking at the below basic, it was running around 43 in 5th grade, it drops 26.6 in 6th grade, and 18.4 in seventh grade. So we make dramatic improvement. Then we seem to lose a lot of it again in eighth grade. But is there any understanding of why that happens, or? Sixth grade would be where they start middle school, right?
Yes, they start sixth grade and they start middle school in sixth grade. And yes, in grade 8, what we do and what we've started to do is to dig into the anchor, the standards to make sure that we're addressing. We've also done some revamping. Karen and her team have done some revamping of the curriculum mapping to make sure that we are getting to what students need to reach the standards that they're being asked to perform at.
Over the last year, our secondary ELA committee really did a lot of work looking at the standards, looking at assessments, actually taking out a unit so that teachers would have more time to go deeper into the information, also looking at the assessments. They spent a lot of time looking at the assessments and then thinking about how to back map that to make sure that kids are making progress during the course of the year, not just on, the summative piece. So keeping better track of that, it's on all of our school level plans at middle school level and elementary.
When you broke it out to students with disabilities, English learner, and regular ed, does this test curve for those other students? They all get the same. This is just to show. So understandably, the students with disabilities aren't going to do as well as our regular students. Yeah, that's not a failing. That's not our failing.
It is
the
just
nature of-
quite,
Yeah.
the students get accommodations that are allowable by the state in their IEPs. Our English language learners don't have to take their ELA exam in their first year of being in the country, but then need to take the state exam starting their second full year. They take the math assessment their first year, regardless of when they come in. So it's,
And federal law prohibits us from giving it the alternate test to more than, 5%?
1%.
1% of the special ed students. So as our special ed population grows and needs become more extreme, there's more and more kids that are forced to take this test that are going to struggle with using disabilities, which is a weight on our schools as well.
You may continue with your presentation.
Good.
all right. So this slide is showing our third, fourth, and fifth grade mathematics scores. And we can see that there's been a slight increase in proficiency in grades 3 and 4, while 5 saw slight decreases in both proficiency and an increase in the below basic scores. At our middle school level, the next slide, we can see that 7th grade had a slight increase in proficiency and a slight decrease in the amount of students scoring in below basic, while the other 2 grade levels remained relatively stagnant. On the next slide, this is showing our science, and what we can see with science is in grade 4, we had increases in the proficient and advanced students, and also saw a decrease in the below basic. So it's encouraging test data. We really believe that a lot of that has to do with the knowledge-rich ELA curriculums that we have, really building students' background knowledge. In grade 8, we saw, again, slight decline in proficiency and an increase in the below basic. So our PBAS scores, and our PBAS scores, again, these are our initial, we just got them. And it really talks about the growth that students are making. And you can see that in 22-23, our growth was well above, which is where we want to be when we have so many students that are scoring and well below basic and basic. We like to see students in that blue realm. In 2024, again, in the mathematics, we can see that grade 4 met the growth standards. Grade 7 was well above, which is where we want to be. But we saw the growth not be as good in 5th, 6th, and 8th grade. And when more students are already coming in behind, we need them to be in blue to be closing the achievement gap. So we're doing a much deeper dive into this information to figure out what's happening in the
I might
classrooms.
jump in, Karen, too. I want to point out with 22 and 23, our growth, we were in the top 10 school districts in the state, not 10%, 10 out of 500 school districts for our math growth. So we made a lot of strides. Unfortunately, you can see this year we lost some of those gains, and again, we need some time to really figure out what happened there.
Right, so in our ELA, again, a similar situation, you see that the bulk of our grades in 2024 were in the green, which means students made the year growth that they should make being in school. But again, I think we've taken great pride in the fact that we've been achieving blue, which means we're closing the achievement gap. And so again, we are continuing to look at how are we moving our students, because we need to make more than a year's growth in order to close achievement gaps.
So Karen, when you get like in 2022 and you have all those deep blues, the highest end, does it make it harder than the next year to move that forward?
It's an interesting thing, and that's what we work with the state PBAS people again, because it looks at, again, growth looks at all kids. It looks at the top performing students, the middle performing, and the low performing students. So there could be a hypothesis that we've moved some and we're not moving others. We have to do a much deeper dive into what's happening, because when push comes to shove, we want our growth to be green or better. That's where we want to be.
Sometimes when it gets to this point, we have to actually dig into individual classrooms, individual students.
And at some point, it's not gonna grow more, but it's good. I mean, in theory, we got a ways to go for that, but.
Yeah, even our highest performers, we want them to be green or above, right?
Yes,
Because
right.
we want them more than a
Right.
year's growth. These charts are very interesting, and as we look at them, you can see that the top charts are showing the increase or decrease in percent proficient, while the bottom are showing an increase or decrease in the below basic. And I just want to point out some trends that I found that are positive in these charts.
Karen, before you start, 22, 23 is on the left. And then 23, 24 is on the right. So we're going left to right.
All right, I should have really grabbed my glasses. So as I'm looking at my notes here, I just kind of would like you to look at Deal going across the top two charts. We see Deal has had an increase in proficiency both years. As we're looking kind of up and down in the 23-24, another bright spot is Grover Cleveland, where they had both increases in proficiency and decreases in their below basic. We want to look at the next slide. We can see the PSSA map. And again, kind of going across some trends that we see are Connell in both 22, 23 and 23, 24 had those increases in proficiency, while we also had Deal School having those increases 2 years in a row in proficiency, and also Lincoln having that increase 2 years in a row. When we kind of look up and down at the math, we're also able to see that Connell had the increase in proficiency and a decrease in the amount of students performing in the below basic. And also Deal had an increase in proficiency and a decrease in the below basic. And so we're really digging in with those schools to see, what is it that they're doing consistently that are getting those results. As we're looking kind of across the bottom with the decrease in below basic, I'm trying to do math here while looking at my my work. We can see that it's, oh my goodness, I wish I could Deal, what's after Deal? Edison had both years of decrease in that below basic. And then also Lincoln had that decrease in below basic. So again, that's what we want to see. We want to see less kids performing in those areas. At the middle school level, which are the next charts, really in math, we can see where we made some strides with East having less students performing in that below basic realm, and was very inconsistent across the other kind of ways to look at it. When we look at the ELA on the next slide, again, we see East kind of going up and down there, having that slight increase on the 23-24 in proficiency and also the decrease in the below basic.
Any questions for Karen? I'm going to go on to the next.
So like, how much is it impacted by the correlation on like the not certified teachers?
I'm gonna, you're teeing me right up. So I'm gonna start to talk about some initial theories for why we think that we've stalled. We were disappointed with the results. So we've spent a lot of hours in a room, kind of digging through some things, reflecting on what we've done over the past 4 to 5 years. And we did come up with some initial theories to share with you. The first is, and I put these two together, the implementation dip. So when you look at that timeline that I showed you prior, sometimes when we're learning new practices and we're learning new beliefs, and there's so much that we kind of shut down, and it's almost a natural response to just kind of flatline in that. The other theory here is the continued recovery from the interrupted instruction with COVID. I put this together, and I thought this was really interesting when I actually charted it out. If you look at the left column here, this is the current grade, 24-25. These were the grades that tested last year. And if you look in the red, you will see what grades these students were impacted during COVID, what we call interrupted instruction. So this group here went out in March and received asynchronous instruction for a quarter. This group here, so our kindergarten kids who tested in third, they spent the first quarter home, and our elementary students came back second quarter every other week, 4 days a week, 1 day virtual. And then we did not bring our secondary students back this year until the fourth quarter. This last year, I did highlight red because there was still an option. There was still an option for students to stay virtual. And we also saw a quite a spike in our cyber program this year as well. I put an asterisk next to current grade 2 because this current grade 2 shows us that this is the first cohort of students who have received uninterrupted instruction with the newly adopted ELA and math materials in 1920. There's that much of a delay with this, or with the ELA and math materials adoption.
So their first testing will show up in grade 3.
Correct. So another few initial theories for the stall is staff turnover, which is causing gaps in training efforts. Staff certifications causing gaps in pedagogy and practice, and employee shortage. So not just on the teacher side, but the entire system causing challenges in providing services to students. An example of that would be because of the bus driver shortage, students may be getting to school later. They may be getting picked up earlier in order for us to get all of our kids transported to and from school. Staff turnover is right here. We put the last 4 years, now they got this together for us. The last 4 years of resignations and retirements. You'll see the uptick there. It's a total of 541, which is over half of our teaching staff. Our 3-year trend with emergency permits, we're at about 25%. Some additional items that we've looked at, the increase in the English learner population, increase in students with disabilities, increase in economically disadvantaged. So when we look at the patterns with this, we will see, get these numbers right, our EL population in 18-19 was 9.6%. We were up to 10.8% last year. Currently, as about 4 weeks ago, we were at 13.5%. Students with IEPs, from the year 18-19 until current, we are at from 20.2% to 23.3%. So we're looking at about 1,124 English learners, 2,424 students with IEPs, which accounts for about 35% of our population. Economically disadvantaged, that's also a subgroup. And I did want to bring this to your attention because it was alarming to me when we were looking back at 18-19. We were at about 76.8%. And in 23-24, so last school year, we were up to almost 89% economically disadvantaged.
So some other kids taking the test, correct? So 89% of the
Total.
kids taking the test. Okay, got it.
Finally, probably the biggest one and the one that I am most passionate about and my team most passionate about, chronic absenteeism. It's a national problem. We know that. We wanted to go over some trends with you tonight because we really think that we need to have a systemic plan to attack this as much as we can over the next 3 to 5 years. Starting in 16-17, you'll see even before the pandemic, there was a little bit of a downward trend. We're starting to recover slowly. This is the whole district. These are elementary kids. These are middle school kids. You'll see it's still pretty shaky there. And our high school kids. A little bit of recovery there, but not enough. These are on the last page of your packet. So in addition to this slide, you do have it in your packet, but you will see the impact of, we grabbed 3 years. And you will see at the top bar is going to be students who have regular attendance. At the bottom, you will see students who have been chronically absent for that year. You see not as much in this when we get to the secondary in a moment, but we're almost seeing numbers that are doubled and below basic and basic that if you're chronically absent, that's where you're landing. These are keystones. Just a couple of areas to point out. Algebra, I mean, this was in 21-22, 30%. If you're in school regular, we have 30% below basic. Chronic absenteeism, that number jumps to 64, almost 65.
If you recall on the last slide, that's approximately 50% of our kids are chronically absent right now, which is really dragging down our test numbers.
So next steps. Priority focus on tackling the chronic absenteeism, which we have been doing, but it hasn't been as strong as we wanted it to be. So we began probably mid first quarter, mobilize some tiered systems of supports to address chronic absenteeism, specific to the reasons why students are chronically absent. Working with school leaders to identify strengths and opportunities to develop a systemic approach in the district and school to reduce chronic absence based on the needs in their particular school. We know each of our schools have different needs at different times. Continued support with the current initiatives. Sorry, Don. So that's the timeline I had up for you. We think it's important to continue the work with that. But we might want to scale it back just a touch here and there. So right now. The third one is schedule quarterly check-ins with student leadership groups to gather feedback on their learning experiences and access to supports available in school and in the community. We know we've got the supports. We don't know much about what their experience is. We don't know how much they're accessing those supports. So we want to get in and have conversations with those kiddos. Reassess the professional learning plan to accommodate new teachers. This is big for us with that turnover that you saw with the 541 resignations and retirements. That means we're bringing on that many people in a 3 to 4 year span of time. Hopefully that will start to flatline itself. But we need to work on developing a cyclical professional learning plan specifically to accommodate teachers and professional support staff who are in those first 3 years in the district. We need to ensure that they have support and that they're confident in those district initiatives that we have. Otherwise, we're just going to keep stumbling. Any questions? Ms. Gwen?
Okay, you talked about absenteeism. What about the tardiness?
That's all included in that. That's all that we count the minutes.
Lisa, did you say we're just going to begin to study the reasons why? Do you already have any strong indications or guesses or is that unique to us, our neighboring districts experiencing similar training or similar districts experiencing?
We do. So, John, you may have heard me talk about ABCs before: attendance, behavior, course performance. There's a little bit of shift in the research where it is accommodating, belonging, and community. So creating more of that experience for students. There are a lot of initiatives happening around the country that we're hoping we can duplicate if they match what the needs of our students and our schools are.
Are you actually doing a national trend in that direction? Just the one field it's just us.
No, it's not just us. It's not just us.
Unique.
What is our role as a school district when students get dropped off at schools and they're still outside after the bell rings? Like, should we be sweeping them up, trying to get them? Because sometimes some of the schools, like you see, after the kids are still outside, or just leave after they get dropped off, whatever.
Specific to the high school?
Yes.
So I asked, I'm not sure if this is Mr. Orlando here. Yeah, I asked Mr. Orlando because to come and speak to that. I know that was an initiative they used to yeah.
I didn't exactly hear what was like the actual question over there. I heard something.
I think the question is, what is the procedure when the morning gets to a certain point?
Yeah.
And students and the doors close for first period?
Want a copy? Want to pass a copy around?
Sure.
Alright, the one on the back doesn't cover that. That's the next one. Sorry, I threw this together at the very end of the day. I didn't have a lot of time to throw this information together, but yeah, thank you. I guess I think the best thing to do is start with the why or the how. Says, we've been working with WestEd and their visits and working with us, noticed that we had a lot of tardy students. It seemed to be from just the allowance of students to just come into school whenever they felt like it started for them. We were having last year, first block, 250 to 300 students tardy per day. So you can imagine when you have a building with last year was 1,600, they have a number here, 1,656 students as of October 31st. Coming in and 300 of those students are late first block anytime from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Right? They're coming in that first hour of the day. The halls do not settle down. And that goes to our 4.1. If you look on the back of your paper, the call survey data. 4.1 is the climate and culture. And 4.1 specifically where we really target is the safety of the hallways. We started deep red in May of 2023 with 2.96 with the national average of 3.59. You could see we made these moves last school year at the end of the year. We did go up slightly and then we continued it this year and we're up even more as this becomes a routine for us and the kids have gotten used to it. We're just below the national average now at 3.54. So we've gone up over a half a point since we started these initiatives. In the first 14 days, so you can see, back to the front, but that's the why, the safety, the number of students that were coming in late, and just felt like they continually could because of the structure of the morning. Our doors actually open at 8 a.m. So they open at 8 a.m. for any student that wants to come in and have breakfast. We have several hundred students that come in every single morning, starting at 8 a.m., go down to breakfast. They can go down to the cafeteria for the first 35 minutes of the day. 8:35, we have to stop serving breakfast in the cafeteria at some point. They have to clean up and so on, and students have to get ready to go to class to start for the day. 8:35, students start going to the auditorium where they are supervised by our staff that is in the auditorium. 8:40, we release the students from the cafeteria, we release them from the auditorium. They have 20 minutes from that point because 8:40 is when the actual start of the quote unquote normal, like not going to breakfast time of the morning would happen, where students are coming in. So that flow of students in started at 8 a.m. and hasn't stopped yet. At 8:40, that is a 10-minute window then that students are still considered on time for school. The last on-time student can get in at 8:50. As soon as it goes to 8:50, then we do shut the door. We do that because of the 300 students that were coming tardy a day, and then we cannot settle the building down first block without doing that. Students will be constantly walking the halls. So the last on-time student has 10 minutes to go to their locker, do what they need to do, and then get to class. At 9 a.m., there's a bell that rings, all the doors shut. We have teams that sweep the hallways. This was set up through teachers from our school, Mr. Parker, Allied Security, West Ed staff, administration from our school, all put this together. And it has had a positive effect on the building. When I asked the teachers at the beginning of the year, I always ask the staff after we start a year, what works right now, what isn't working right now. The number one thing they said that works are AM procedures and how it makes a very orderly start to our school day. We have, like I said, in the first 14 days of doing this last year, we saw 800 fewer tardies because we had a defined time of when it starts and an urgency to get to school and to be on time and to get to class on time. And just pulling data from today, 1 year ago, so November 6th of last school year, November 6th of this year, we had 54 fewer attendance events. And if you look, our numbers are actually up 264 students. So with more students, we had less attendance events with these procedures in place. Yep.
That's your enrollment, correct?
That is our current enrollment as of October 31st. I just ran the numbers the other day. And we're holding. So it's good.
Just that, like, for me, we're talking about me and the students, where they at. We don't know the reason why the students are late to school. And to me, that's also a safety issue to lock kids outside, to be outside until after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So, because few parents reached out to me and they're basically missing first period. And our data shows that, so constantly, I'm not making an excuse for those who are constantly late, but there might be few who are, for whatever reason, parents are running late, whatever, and now we're shutting kids outside. What about the safety outside? And then the kids are put in the auditorium until 9, 10, so they basically miss their first period. And that just shows in our data that those kids are missing learning time as well. So to me, I don't know that recommendation from West Ed or not. We should be meeting kids where they're at. I personally disagree with that. As the weather gets colder, we should not be keeping kids outside. I know the school opens at 8 o'clock, but I haven't seen in any other school district where they keep kids outside just to avoid 300 kids. I don't know what the reason for those 300 kids, but to me, that's unacceptable.
Can you shed some insight onto discussions around the safety of, or that follow-up question?
So to discuss safety outside, we do have supervision outside. We've had one event outside during that time, over 100 school days of doing this. We have actually, the data shows that more kids are getting to class and getting instruction because we have less tardies. We have more kids getting to school on time and getting to class.
So there is an effort to move the kids into the building.
Oh, absolutely,
Off of the,
absolutely.
yeah.
We have
Where
staff
does our
outside, let's go.
responsibility start? Does it start at the sidewalk? Does it start in the building? Does it, what is the, like, our responsibility for the students' house when they leave the house on their walk? Okay,
Who's concerned?
to the 7-Eleven or to the country fair and then into the building. Okay.
We're talking about disadvantaged kids, disadvantaged communities, kids who just missing that 2 mile. Again, I'm not making an excuse for every kid, but to me, that just it kind of, it shows up the correlation probably in our, after you have 300 kids, or, I mean, I see the numbers probably getting lower, but you still have constantly having kids and are returning word word, missing, burning time.
Yeah,
That's a concern.
I don't want to speak for Mr. Orlando.
But I'm not pointing to him, but I'm just saying, like, when this was brought up by a few parents, you know, like me, as a parent, my kid was going to that school and they got dropped off a little bit late. I'd be pissed that my kids are sitting outside until 9:10, and then after that, they have to go to the auditorium and wait till 9:30. That's an issue, and I think that shows correlation how some of the students are missing learning time as well.
We can track that.
I'm curious because I know they're just getting started, but the community schools model, because one of the main things they said they were going to help out with was with attendance and tardiness and whatnot. So I would, like to give them time to interact. And I'm sure that that's going to require them to talk to the families as well, because that's part of what they do anyways. Maybe we could get a better understanding, see if those numbers and trends go down. But although it's global warming, I don't know if we're going to have any cold weather events anymore. But I'd imagine that if there was extreme cold weather conditions or something, that somebody would make a call on the spot to imagine, right? I don't know who I'm looking at asking. But I'd imagine there's a spot. Obviously, it's the kids are out there shivering,
Right. Absolutely.
something would be done, right?
Absolutely.
Because there's supervision out there.
There is.
Dr. Brennan,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a couple comments, questions. So first, with regard to United Way, I understand and agree, we're just getting up and running there. Chronic absenteeism has been a problem in our district. We've had community schools in place for a number of years. This has been a priority, so I do think we can ask those questions. What is being done to help with this issue? It didn't just pop up at Erie High. We've had it, and we've had the community school model. So I think some accountability, some data, just a conversation would be good. Secondly, speaking of communication, of course, I know you've communicated these procedures to all your families, to the students. I think that the data around chronic absenteeism and scores is quite shocking. I mean, I think we're all quite shocked. So are we showing that data to our parents? Now I understand parent conferences. I'm going to be really honest. I probably won't go to parent conferences for my kids in high school this year because it's hard in high school. But sharing that data, even at the elementary level, I think with our parents to say, do you see the difference here when your child is chronically absent? I think could be very powerful. So if we're not doing that, I love to see us help parents. And then I guess lastly, and it goes back to the United Way question, and I think John asked this too, what will you be doing to help understand why these kids are chronically absent? I heard you talk about national trends. I think that's great, but like specifically with our kids, how are we going to figure this out? Why are they absent and how can we fix it?
And specifically, we started with Erie High and we're working our way through the secondaries, but yesterday we spent about an hour and a half looking at school practice. So 10 key elements of how we can strengthen systems to support students and families, communicate the importance of school, how it makes a difference when it's just one day a month, because that's chronic absenteeism. So we're starting to build some of those structures, which we feel the opportunity at Erie High with Megan and her team just coming on, that we're going to be able to layer them in quite nicely to support different areas of the work. So we're working together rather than in silos.
And I guess one last comment too, I always think about teacher training, teacher preparation. If we have new curriculum and we're doing support for our teachers, with West Ed and others, and things are still not working, at what point do we also need to go down the food chain a bit and say, are you sending us teachers that are well prepared. And it's not about finger pointing, it's just about working together. So just another comment, I'm a big proponent of that. Are we sharing this data with our teacher prep programs so that we know that they know coming in what we need our teachers to be doing? So those are all my comments. Thank you.
Anyone else?
This comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
The gentleman who presented earlier, from, IUP mentioned that they can assist with certified teachers, so, we can work with that.
Any other questions for us? Anything else? Moving on.
No.
All right, I ask that we take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Then we'll come back, to the remainder of the agenda. So we'll take a 5-minute, recess.
The ones that with the dots.
Back at 7. Go ahead and get started back after this recess. Next on our agenda is the 24-25 administrative goals. Mr. Polito. Okay, started.
All right, so the next item is our administrative goals for this year, and you have them at your place, a draft. Again, we decided to, and we're agreed to design these around the board's priorities for this year, which are listed on the top. And then under each of the goals, there's a section for each of our departments, educational services, operations, human resources, and finances on the back. And there's each goal for each department, and then I have listed here what board priority that aligns with. And as you look through here, there's really three main themes that we decided to focus on this year for administrative goals. One, obviously based on what you saw in the presentation on the PSSA scores, chronic absenteeism. Two, staff retention, especially around our new teachers. We believe that the increase in the teacher salary is going to help, but this issue with teacher shortages and potential for turnover is going to stay with us, and we really need to redesign our systems to better support those new teachers, get them the professional development they need, and make sure that they have all the supports they need to feel comfortable and succeed here in the district so that they do stay. And then the last one is really around culture and climate is customer service. So providing customer service, improve customer service to our students, to our families, and to our staff. So that you'll see that throughout all of these goals that we have those type of initiatives that we're proposing for this upcoming school year.
Questions for Mr. Polito?
This makes me wonder, has the salary adjustment that we made had any direct impact on filling the positions and resulting
Natalie's coming in the.
So I think in terms of some of the bleeding has stopped, because I know that there were other people considering leaving. That as we instituted that new salary has made a difference. It's also made it easier. We've just talked to some new student teachers and made it easier for us to give those offers to that first round so that they don't look elsewhere. They can look at those salaries. So, but I just shared with Daria, it's not going to get any better. I looked at some statistics today. Lancaster, very similar to us. We currently only have 5 openings. Lancaster has 11 openings just today. The city of Philadelphia, as of 9/23, had 125 openings in the state. And the state we only issued 7,500 certs last year. And there are 3,287 schools, public schools. That doesn't include charters and non-public schools in the state of Pennsylvania. That's 2.2 teachers per school. So I only share those statistics with you so you understand that the huge challenge. I think the fact that we only have 5 openings is not too bad. There are districts still, Wattsburg had ads out. Small districts that have never been recruiting this time of year are recruiting. So that's what we're up against. We're working with our universities to get those kids in our buildings, student teaching, and offering them. So we are doing those things, but if you look at those numbers, they're not great to look forward.
higher vacancy number than 5 before the salary adjustment?
Partially, I think.
Started off the year with 22.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was hoping to hear,
Yeah.
because to have made that adjustment and have no number of decrease positions is.
I think the other thing that it has helped us do is look at, and I know they're not certified teachers, but maybe someone who really loves math or art, and then bring them into the district and have them explore teaching. Because now even the chasm of the salary isn't so huge in the private industry as it is in teaching. And so we're doing a lot of that, working with people saying, hey, try teaching out for a year. And I think that's helped recruit some of those people, albeit they're not certified, But if we can get them enrolled in programs and get them the support, then our hope is that they'll move down that pathway.
Do we have like a caveat for like the emergency teachers, like the goal to get them certified? Or
Yeah,
send-
we have a whole process that we work through with that, and there's varying pathways. Those are some of those grant pathways
And we
that I,
reimburse it, right?
Yes.
Reimburse.
we reimburse them. There are some grant pathways. We just got asked to participate in an additional grant with Millersville, so we're partnering with the universities to do those things, so. It's not perfect, but we're working towards making some changes and increasing our.
Other questions regarding the goals? Comments?
I have a question, which is a comment, this doesn't really, it's not specifically applies to staff diversity, but I think another focus area, and I don't want to add things here, is just like cultural understanding. To make sure that the staff that we do have is getting trained and more, understanding the population that they're serving and that they're working with. Because, it's very different.
Maybe that could just be, it seems like there's an element of it in your, at least in your human resource, maybe there's room to adjust
Right.
a current goal or something like that.
Yeah, take a look at it.
Training or something.
Thank you.
Others? I was, during the recess, I was talking, Brian, talking about, providing a monthly report that's available, on this so that we can continue to track, the progress. We'll make sure that, again, just some thoughts of however we do it moving forward, that we give some thought to thinking like, am I going to have questions around this in March or April or May or whatever? And thinking about that ahead of time, so maybe we could get it on the calendar to have a presentation on it in advance. So that way we know what to prepare for. I'm going to offer some suggestions on aligning the work of the board around our goals now that we have the administrative goals. I don't know what that's going to look like. It doesn't mean it's really actual work for anybody. So what I'm proposing, but I'm going to sort of, that way we can sort of like, what are we doing? Like, for instance, with the board policy committee, like what are they doing around these topics, right? How is that interface, governance committee, a little easier because we're doing the superintendent search, but other things as well. So just thinking through how we're aligning ourselves around it. We adopt, this is for the agenda, we actually adopt these, or is this, remind me?
We do when you're ready. I wanted to get a
Okay.
draft for you to digest. I want to bring it back one more time before we put it on the agenda.
Sounds good. All right. That takes us to, finally, we're in section 3 of finance and operations, the electric bus contract.
Before we move on to that,
Yes,
I'm
sure.
sorry, this keeps going in my head. Mobilized tiered systems of supports to address chronic absenteeism. Do we have a list, top 10, top 5 list of bins of why this happens? Like, I can't make it to school on time because I'm not dropped off on time. Or I don't care about school, I just don't want to be there,
Do we have that feedback?
Yeah, do we have those sort of high level bins of the main reasons why we see this happening?
I believe we can pull that from our PBI
That's
survey.
awesome, thank you.
Let me double check. and
Okay.
Get it.
Okay.
Good question. All right, electric bus contract. Commissioner Weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Brenneman. So I'm going to be recommending the approval of the proposed contract that you all have a copy of. It's a little bit dense, so I'm going to just summarize tonight, remind everyone why we are looking at this contract, I'll highlight some of the key provisions and the financial points, and then if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them tonight, or you can dive into the contract a little bit more detail, and I can answer questions in the interim.
Is there any way to project the?
I didn't have a handout, but I can include a handout afterwards, if that's easier. I can also, can this connect to the?
We're not that fancy.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Don't want me to do a Zoom or send it to me.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful. Sorry.
The contract itself is a little bit,
It's a contract.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you getting it, Tim?
I will, just give me a second.
So what do we need to be?
And this is in our agenda for next week. Correct? For adopting.
This is the contract. But I'm just gonna summarize the,
Okay, then we don't really need to look at it.
yeah, I don't, you can look at it on your own. It's
Yeah,
attached to
okay.
the agenda.
Okay.
But I didn't wanna, obviously read the contract word for it. I just wanted to highlight the main points.
Okay.
This contract came about as a result of our district being awarded a grant that we applied for last year. This was before my time. The EPA Clean School Bus Program Award was designed to provide financial incentives to school districts for replacing our existing diesel school buses with newer, cleaner electric or alternative fuel buses. The initiative was aimed to reduce harmful emissions, improve air quality, ultimately benefiting students' health and the broader community. You, of course, will remember more about the debates that you had initially going into seeking the grant. The award significantly offsets the upfront costs of purchasing the electric buses. I'm gonna first outline the scope of the services and then review some of the key financial points. There are some consulting services. Highland will provide comprehensive planning advice, including guidance on identifying and securing any additional incentives. The contract optimizes procurement for fleet efficiency, ensuring that we achieve a cost-effective fleet operations. They handle all of the procurement for us of the buses. Highland will handle the installation of charging infrastructure and integration with the power grid. Staff will receive training on system usage, supported by resources covered under warranty to equip our personnel, our existing maintenance personnel, with the necessary skills for safe and effective maintenance of the buses. Highland will oversee charging and electricity cost management to reducing operational complexity and maximizing energy efficiency. While the vehicles are under contract, we will have operational control during specified periods. This is the VOP that you'll see in the contract language. We are responsible for maintenance tasks on the vehicles. Some of the key stipulations and financial terms that you'll want to be thinking about are the base service fee. Of course, there's an annual fee of $22,000 per vehicle. This is subject to a 3% annual escalation starting from the second year. There is a mileage allowance. Each bus is capped at 11,000 miles per year, but this is within the limits of our current routes. The vehicle use outside of the specified operating hours, that VOP that I mentioned, is allowed. We just need to give them some notice, and they're willing to work with us on that. There is a sort of 90-day sort of period where we can get used to how that communication works. This allows us to maintain the flexibility as we deploy the fleet throughout the year. So we're not just limited to just those hours explicitly. There is some room to negotiate that. Highland guarantees 97% charger uptime. If this standard is not met, we will get credits capped at 10% of the total fees. Additionally, there's a route readiness guarantee. This means that we would get $100 per vehicle per day for any failure on Highlands part for us to run our normal routes with the buses. The fleet must be operational within 18 months, so there is a bit of a timeline, and some of the details of executing that timeline need to be worked out, but you may remember in the when Highland presented to us, they did give us a timeline overview. While the district handles certain repairs, there is reimbursement for parts and maintenance to a degree with some caps on those reimbursements. Those are detailed in the contract. We do have an opportunity also to get some revenue from grid services. We may benefit from their ability to leverage electric buses for the grid service, sharing 40% of the net system revenues generated. Now, there's an asterisk to that. It's not currently something that is possible, but when and if it becomes possible, we will be able to generate some of that revenue and share in that revenue. Incentives and costs. So just a reminder, we're taking advantage of $345,000 rebate per electric bus from that EPA Clean School Bus Program. There's also a $40,000 tax credit per bus for the infrastructure costs. Reminder, in summary, we do get the training and operational support. This will ensure that staff can manage and operate the electric fleet efficiently, with training supported under the warranty, and Highland is providing all this as part of this service agreement. We don't have to go out and find someone to train our people. The transition should yield savings compared to replacing diesel buses with, or basically replacing new diesel buses with 12 additional buses. So there is definitely a cost savings. If we were going to do this on our own and just get new diesel buses, there's certainly a cost savings associated with this. The service agreement will not only address long-term transportation needs, but it ensures that we're taking full advantage of these financial incentives and cost efficiencies. I do believe that it represents a strategic investment in the district's fleet. And with that, I recommend its approval.
Any questions? Mr. Nichols?
Yeah. These could be out of service if they're not maintained. Our responsibility is to maintain them. So if we call up and say we need XYZ part and they say, fine, we'll get it to you in 60 days, it's going to sit for 2 months. I don't think that should expose us on that unit for that period of time.
That is a point that we discussed with Highland, and they're willing to work with us on workarounds if a part for some reason would become unavailable. However, based on my conversations with them, they don't believe that that we would be waiting any longer for most routine kind of maintenance parts than a normal diesel bus route.
But we're not protected in a contract now.
I don't think that there's anything specific about like a delay like that, but there is the guarantee that the buses have to be operational. And I think that might fall under that.
There's a credit we receive if the bus is not operational.
Yeah, $100 per day. Like, what is that going to get us? Like, if we can't use a bus per day, we're at a lot more than $100. Like, we can't rent a bus for $100.
There's also the obligation that the buses, not only is there a downtime credit, but there's an obligation that the buses will be available. If they're not available, then that's a breach of the contract.
So it's broken.
We have spares.
Oh, we have spares.
We have spares, that the $100 is roughly the amount it costs us to operate a bus on a daily basis.
Okay.
Through the calculations.
Mhm.
So we're comfortable that if something does happen, we'll be covered.
Okay.
Yeah, so just a reminder, that's a good point. We aren't replacing every one of our buses. We have about 30.
Oh, spare
36
non-electric
buses.
buses.
And So we can use a diesel bus to run the routes, and because of the way the routes are configured now, we have plenty of room to maneuver with those extra buses. If we needed to do a long-term sub
Okay.
with one of the buses for some reason.
Got it. So they will be training our people on these electric repairs that are a maintenance task, or if they have to do electric repairs. That's our responsibility, and they will be training us how to do those.
They are going to train us on how to do routine maintenance on the buses, and most things that would the manufacturer would require us to do to keep it in shape. And they use a term.
Preventative maintenance.
Yeah, there's preventative maintenance, but they have a special term that.
Yeah, if there's a repair that requires specialty knowledge regarding the electric nature of the vehicle, then it would be shipped back to a dealer, and then they would pay the dealer for
Okay,
all.
because I saw
all the
electric
time.
repairs were our responsibility, so I wrote that down.
There are responsibility to ensure that they occur, but they pay for them.
Exactly. Yes, we are responsible for making sure that if the bus is in repair, that we repair it. We can't leave it in a state of disrepair. Because remember, there's our obligation to have those buses available for them to
Right.
be charged and be producing energy in the grid. So
The flyer that we reviewed when we approved this a while back said there was two possible buses. One was well-known name Bluebird, and the other one I wasn't familiar with. Could be either or. Which one are we
Randy,
going
can
to
you
get?
remind me which bus?
Which bus type?
Wolfington International. And if we go with the international ones, there is a repair facility in Erie. And so they will have, the person's not trained yet, the person's not identified, but by the time we get the bus, I've been told that person will be in place. So when we have the more major repairs on the electrical system, they're just gonna be right down the road.
Is that a current bus manufacturer, Wolfington? I've not heard of that.
Yeah,
I've heard of
that's
Bluebird.
that's the sales company. It's actually, they sell international buses. And they've been the successful bidder on our last several rounds of buses.
Okay, good. So it's a brand name.
So mechanics are very familiar with them and comfortable with them and comfortable that they can get parts with their customer service, those sorts of things.
So they're charging us $22,000 for each bus, and then also 3% increase year after year.
Correct. It escalates each year.
What is that escalation for? I mean, why is that increase?
Inflation.
But
Yes.
what are they, are they paying our energy costs? I mean, are they paying our electric bill?
Yes.
Okay, and so that kind of is figured into that 3% okay.
And you mentioned eventually this power grid, that we can be also profit sharing. Like if other schools in the area get certain grants, will we also get some kind of incentive from this company?
So the way that would work is this is essentially going to be an electric play for the company where they will charge the buses at low demand and then have all of these batteries that are around that you can plug back into the system and have vehicle to grid charging. We can sell that electricity back into the grid at peak demand and make money on that. The regulations don't allow for that to occur in Pennsylvania quite yet, but we've already pre-negotiated. Should that occur and there be a profit that is earned, we will retain 40% of that profit.
Other questions?
How long might that take to the action by the state to do? Are they working on it?
John, I've given up on making prognostications regarding the legislative efficiency of our Commonwealth. It's going to be a while. But hopefully in the next 12 years, when the contract's up and running, we can take advantage of it.
First in line.
Just wondered if they had a concept.
No, sir.
Other questions or comments?
Are we the first in this area or a fairly large area to be implementing this?
Yes.
Pittsburgh's the closest.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's the closest.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, there's a couple down in Pittsburgh, what I'm aware of.
okay.
This is
At least Erie County.
This is the largest electric school bus fleet company in the country.
Yeah, I actually looked at the school districts that were awarded and it lists who they're working with, if they're self obtaining the buses or if they're working with a third party, and Highland is listed. They're supporting many different school districts throughout the country.
Other questions or comments? Okay, I think we're good with it. Anything else?
So this be for vote the next,
Yeah, it's on the
next
agenda.
week.
I will note that the version that is on the first page made reference to venue in Massachusetts. We've had that negotiated out and that sheet did not get switched, so I'll get a new front sheet on that. We're not gonna have to sue anybody in Massachusetts. We can stay here in Pennsylvania.
Let's hope we don't have to sue anybody at all, but yeah. You're saying as if it's a lawyer, you'd say as if it's predetermined.
Yeah, well.
Okay, next we have the bond issue.
Yes, just wanted to update the board that we are on track for our $10 million bond issue. We've been working with PFM and PNC to finalize everything. We had our bond rating call on Monday. It went very well. The analyst felt that we were doing a great job with our finances and turning around the school districts. So we had strong systems and structures in place and a strong management team. However, the major thing that's negatively impacting our rating is the general economics of the city. So bottom line is we're doing everything right, but the general economic conditions in the city is probably going to bring our rating down a little bit, but it's going to be much better than it was last time. I'm hoping that we're going to end up with an A and maybe a notch right below that though. So that's all good news. The resolutions are being finalized right now, and if the board is comfortable with it, we'd like to put them on for supplemental for next week. We should have them ready by Friday to go up. Tim, is there anything you want to add about those resolutions?
There's additionally a resolution that we will be adding known as a reimbursement resolution. That is a requirement under federal tax law that if we wanted to reimburse ourselves for any expenses that were incurred, that would ultimately be funded by that bond, that we would have the availability to do that. Not too worried about it. We've got enough expenses coming down the pike with the building of Edison, but it's going to be a belt and suspenders approach. So the resolution that'll be before you will be the maximum amount that we would look to get an authorization for. And it allows for us to put an application before the Department of Community and Economic Development in order to receive authorization to enter into the debt.
Right. You go ahead, Mr.
Tim, what is it?
Well, what I mean by saying a belt and suspenders approach is it's lawyer talk, John. We're going to ensure that you have the opportunity to do the reimbursement if you have to. We don't foresee the need for it, but if we don't adopt the resolution, you'll lose the opportunity to do it.
So because others again as a belt fail.
Should the belt pop, the suspenders will be there to save you.
Got it, okay. I did too, John. Same thing. Any other questions about that or the colloquialisms of Mr. Walker? Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Polito. I don't believe there's a report. Ms. Amatando is not here today. I don't believe there is a committee report. Does any of the committee members have anything briefly to say regarding the board policy committee?
We met last month.
Cool. Okay, is there another meeting coming up?
Next month.
December? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thanks, that's your report. I appreciate it.
That's not.
We don't have anything for the board governance committee, or you just want to mention?
Well, yeah, sorry, I didn't ask you, but just, I guess, a reminder that we have our superintendent search kickoff meeting tomorrow at noon here. And we're roughly about 2 hours. So if you can plan, I think we'll be able to get through it. Everyone should have received the PowerPoint today. Angela sent it out. Thank you, Angela, for doing that. So if you have time to review that tomorrow, probably we'll make our time together go faster. So.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin, and thank you, everybody, for getting back and with your availability on that. So, and Ms. Jones for helping coordinate that. Next, we have the draft agenda. Please review it now, and if you have any separations, please make note. We'll get this
Not a separation, but I'm curious enough to just wonder about the change orders. Yeah, you give us a sentence or two about each one, I mean, are any of them significant? I guess.
No, not, to be honest with you, most of them are not significant. So the first one for the Grover Cleveland window project is originally when the architects designed the project, we were unsure as to who was gonna actually take out the windows, because it was dependent on the results from the asbestos testing. The asbestos does exist, we have to abate it, but it's not to a point where the abatement contractor is going to remove it. So this added cost is to have the general contractor remove the windows after the abatement is done. The second one, which has to do with Church and Murdoch and Edison. After the initial design was created and we went through code review, they actually came back and said that the location of your transformer and your generator are incorrect. So we actually had to switch where they were, and we went through different iterations. And so this is just an increase in the cost associated with that individual change. We also needed to increase the temporary power that's going to that building. Currently, the first temporary power that we have is just really feeding the job trailers that are there. With this change order, we'll get basically 3-phase, but that means that Penelec has to change where the line's coming in, so that's what that added cost is. The EE Austin one for the new admin building, which is an add of 14,000, is the IU came through and stated that some of the paving that is in the parking lot is actually not to code for ADA requirements. So this is additional paving work that we had to do. The EE Austin one for Collegiate Academy is actually the final deduct change order for that project, so we can close them out. We held on to this because they didn't want to complete their punch list items and they wanted to get their final payment. And I said, there's no way you're gonna get your final payment until you do our punch list work. So it was a good way to hold them out. The next one down, which is from Thomas Construction for phase 2 renovations. A lot of time and material work that we found, again, old building, we opened it up. All of a sudden, this door frame didn't fit, and then this one had to be altered, so it's just the end all of what needed to happen. And then the last one is the same, that is Newco's contract to the new admin building. This is the biggest one, it's an add of 154, but it is also 154,000, but it is also T&M work that we discovered through, again, taking down a wall. This isn't the code. I mean, when we renovated the kitchen downstairs, we found that most of the conduit was actually hung with other pieces of wire, which is not even close to being code. So they had to go in and redo all of the infrastructure in the kitchen as far from an electrical standpoint.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Dr. Brenneman?
Yes, Ms. Devlin.
Just a question on the Eagles Nest Amendment, Teresa. Sorry, for Neil. I'm sorry.
So when they came to us before the school year started, they had requested certain number of aides for the rooms. And we said, no, you don't really need that. Well, after meeting with them, they came back and they said, we really do need it. So talking to them, so that's what this is a budget revision for. They also had some unforeseen increases in their insurance for the building that they didn't predict when we approved, when the board approved the original budget in May. So that is also on there.
Anything else on the
Are we tracking the performance of the schools?
Any other question?
Oh, I have a question. Okay, with the Eagles Nest, do we have to approve their adding grades? So they have not asked for additional grades.
They did in the spring, so every spring they ask for an additional grade.
Okay,
We've been adding one every year.
okay. But it's my understanding that their addition of a grade does not impact our costs the way a charter school. I don't know how that's different. I mean, we still have teachers that. If we lose students, we still have to pay those teacher costs, just like with the charter school.
There are teachers at the Eagles Nest, so it's a partnership. What we're paying over there is for some administrative costs, some of the other personnel, rent, things like that.
So you get a part of that, like there's part of staff is included in the student. Okay.
It's cool.
I just have a question. If we're through with that, what's up with your rise? Any more?
It's a good question. We received an update this week. Their auditor gave financial statements. They refused to issue an audit that had any opinion associated with it because the individuals from Erie Rise refused to certify any of the documentation and tell them that any of the numbers they were providing was accurate. So the best that they could do is issue a financial statement. They've canceled out. They're not going to do a final audit because it would be the same. It would be of no value. There'd be no opinion associated with it. There's one outstanding lawsuit that is in the process of being mitigated. It's being covered by insurance. There's two outstanding lawsuits. One an employee suit, another one with the landlord. Both are being addressed. The receiver has engaged specialty counsel, actually one of the individuals from my firm, to handle the process of dissolving a nonprofit because they did not have that experience to dissolve a nonprofit. And he has prepared the appropriate documentation to submit to the Attorney General so that it can be dissolved as soon as these items are resolved. There is one large liability to PSERS. PSERS wanted about $962,000 as a lump sum to handle the distribution for the retirement obligation. That number is being negotiated down. For like the reasons why later if you'd like. But we're waiting for final resolution of that. So it is, the expenses are way down. And it is a function now of just, wrapping up a few of those things. There's no employees on the books. There's no rentals being paid out. There's all of, the bleeding has stopped, so to speak. And the money that is left, they recognize as Erie School District money. And so they're, they give us regular reports, they give monthly reports to the courts, we get copies of those. I mean, I'm pleased, Neil, I don't know.
Extremely pleased.
Well, it's over 2 million. That we used to pay over to them, right?
It was closer to 4.
No. But did they settle with JCAC on the rent?
I am. The Erie School District has intervened in that case, and I know we're in general session. So I'll just, generally state that we're there to ensure that the interests of the Erie School District are protected because any monies that are paid out in that case would impact the monies that would come back to us.
Anything else for the good of the order?
At all?
Hopefully it's.
Anyone, what is this in our packet? What does this represent? Anyone?
What is
It's in
it?
our envelopes.
Just a card about, is that net service or is that? something
No,
else?
the nutrition group. What-
Oh, we get ads sometimes.
That's a competitor mess.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I was unaware of
We
that.
go through a bid process to select those.
Okay, okay.
We get ads sometimes we get certified letters from people who believe that they represent the government, the people's government or something.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah. Any other questions or anything good in order? All right, I think we'll conclude the public session. We'll now move into the executive session for legal and personnel matters. I do want to say though, quickly though, I am sorry for your loss, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.